select a different speaker.
Right. So Namrata will say something.
Yes, sir. We are going to start, sir.
Right. I request most of you to put the audio off. It doesn't get much different. Put the audio on when you are going to speak, okay?
Okay, we start now. Suprabhatam, good morning. Today, the cloud of Indrashil University is lighted with constellation of 7 stars. More than 7 stars, it's 8 stars, and all from chemistry background, from chemical science, and from pharma industry. So I'm very much delighted and honored to welcome in our webinar series, Science and Technology for Mankind. And today the topic of webinar is known to all, that is indigenization of intermediate, indigenization of intermediate and bulk drugs in India, ramping process R&D. I welcome today Dr. J.S. Yadav, who is provost, and he is the chair of panel discussion too. He'll be initiating the panel discussion. Then we will have with us Dr. Biswajit Mitra, who is Chief Mentoring Officer, Kerala Pharmaceutical Limited. We are joined by Dr. T. Rajamanar. He is Executive Vice President and Advisor to MD, Head High Impact Innovations, Sustainable Health Solutions, Sun Pharmaceuticals Industry Limited. Then again, we are joined by Mr. Sandeep Parikh, who is founder and CEO of Synergia Sciences Limited. We are pleased to welcome Dr. B. Gopalan, who is Scientific Advisor, Division of Crop Protection Chemicals, IICT Hyderabad. Again, we are pleased to welcome Dr. Jaspal Singh, who is CTQ Saurav Chemicals Limited, and he is also XYP Chemicals R&D Peneka Biotech Limited. We have Dr. S. Chandrasekhar, who may be joining later. He has given us the commitment that he will be joining later, and he is Director CSIR, Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, CSIR, IICT Hyderabad. He is yet to join with us, but then he has permitted us to start. And I have with us our Dean, School of Engineering, Dr. Amish Vyas. I welcome you all. Mr. Vijay Joy is also there, who has coordinated the entire webinar. So welcome all to Indrashil. Had it been pre-COVID, perhaps it would have been very difficult for all industry people and scientists to bring on one forum. And that too in a very short period of time. There would have been one or the other, a difficulty. And I am thank you to all for squeezing time out of your busy schedule to be with us and lighting the Indrashil University cloud. Welcome all. Now I invite Dr. J.S. Yadav to take the spotlight to set the webinar objective. Dr. Yadav, please unmute yourself, sir.
Okay, thank you, Namrata. Only I can say that I welcome to you all for this webinar. I will come back again, after Amish has spoken. Our objective was very clear that, we are dependent on many of the drug intermediate, agrochemical intermediate from import from abroad. And there is a real serious problem. If you go back in 80s, 60s, 80s, most of the intermediates we were making it. Actually, most of the fermentation we were doing it. Very little import was there. We had so many things going on. I will come back again. Only I will say that welcome, and I like to thank all my panelists who agreed with short notice. And short notice is done deliberately because I have seen if you do by the long period of time, people forget that there is a cloud meeting. So only 1 week you get, of course we decide earlier, but in 1 week we activate everybody so that people fresh memory will be there for the webinar. And that's why we will see that a large number of people will attend. We had one webinar where more than 500 people attended. Let us see how much we'll get it. So
Yeah,
this,
yes, sir.
with this I will invite Amish Vyas, who is our Dean faculty. He will
Yeah.
tell about the whole program and also he will tell something by you. Then I'll come back just before starting the final.
Now the spotlight shifts to Vyas sir. And before that, I would like to announce that we got registration over 4:30. Let's see how many of them join. And some of them are viewing live on Facebook also. So, sir, this is just very encouraging, webinar for us because of the presence of this stars of chemical science and chemistry and pharma industry people. So over to Amish sir for introducing the Indrashil University and its initiative, other initiatives.
Uh, Good morning, everyone present over here, and welcome to this very important seminar in today's era, post-COVID era, basically. Kandap, can we have a slide, please? Kandap. Yeah. So once again, welcome all of you to the Indigenization of Intermediate and Bulk Drugs in India, Ramping Process R&D webinar. Next slide, please. This Indrashil University, basically, it is an inspiration from our beloved late Sri Indravardhan A. Modi and Srimati Shilaben Modi, on whose name the Indrashil University has been established, and that was established by our founding chancellor, Dr. Rajiv I. Modi. As we all know, that Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited started in 1951, and to honor their legacy of care and compassion, the university's governing body and Dr. Rajiv Modi are determined to holistically transform and develop the university into a hallmark of global academic excellence, and that is the prime motto we would like to establish our university in life science. This is the one and only kind of university in India which is focusing on life science, and we want to establish as a research university also. Next, please. So this is just a story of our success, like in 1951. Previous one, please. Previous one, Kanda. Yeah, in 1951, Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited that was established, and in 2016, educational initiative by CPL with the trust name Sri Saraswati Education Sansthan, and we started Indrashil University in the 2018 only. This is the first life science university in India, and within a span of just 1 year, we would able to achieve center of Atal Incubation Center at our place, AIC ISC. That is a flagship startup and entrepreneurship incubator program. In 2020, that is early 2020, we could achieve one more flagship scheme at Indrashil University. That is the Student Startup and Innovation Program scheme, partly funded by the government of Gujarat in the name of Indrashil Innovative Foundation at Indrashil University itself. Next, please. So why one should go for the Indrashil University? The 5 pillars of the success or the motto of Indrashil University, you can see that academic excellence, no compromise with that. Industrial exposure, very much essential to bridge the gap between industry and academics. Internship and placement program to make the students ready for industry. 360 development of student to prepare them to face the life, to face the real problems of the life, and global education standards meeting with our academic excellence. Next, please. So I would like to highlight about our mentor of Indrashil University, Dr. J.S. Yadav. The name itself is enough to say in the science community. He is at present the provost of Indrashil University. He is a mentor and director of research at Indrashil University. Earlier, he was with as a director of IICT Hyderabad. He is a Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Fellow, J.C. Bose National Fellow Award winner. More than 150 plus patents are on his name. For more than 1400 publications are there. 250 plus PhD students are already guided by him, and still the number continues. And more than 27,000 citations are available of his publications, out of his publications. So you can visit his profile at www.indrashiluniversity.in/director-research. Next, please. So our academic structure, where we offer basically two programs, two major programs. One is in engineering, second is in science. Under engineering, we have BTech Computer Science and Engineering, BTech Mechanical Engineering, BTech Chemical and Biochemical Engineering, and PhD. Under School of Science, we have BSc Honors Chemistry, BSc Honors Bioscience, MSc Chemistry, MSc Animal Biology, MSc Microbiology, and PhD. And we are very happy to tell you that within a span of just 2 years, we could able to have international collaboration with 3 international universities: Sacred Heart University USA, Tuskegee University USA, and Newcastle University Australia. Next, please. Next, yes. Now we are having, see, this is what one more feather to the crown of Indrashil University, that we would be able to offer dual degree program to our students in a format of 3+1 year, where student will be studying 3 years at Indrashil University and 1 year at Sacred Heart University, and will get the degree from Sacred Heart University as well from the Indrashil University, and that is possible with the help of Dr. J.S. Yadav, sir. Next, please. So we are having number of MOUs. So I will not go in depth of the number of MOUs, but the focus activities under all these MOUs are divided in this category, like internship program, where student exchange will take place, faculty training and guest lectures, that is continuous process to bridge the gap between industry and academia, live project and research to make the student acquainted with the industry life, setting up of IoT and augmented reality kind of the lab to match with the pace of IT industry, computer industry, establishing COE for skill development to give a 360-degree development of the students, industry specific course curriculum to match the industry pace, industry practices with the academic, and teaching and learning support to industry as well. This is so by the win-win kind of the MOU always we are doing. Next, please. These are the just from the eyes of camera, you can see the facilities available at Indrashil University, and that is what we can offer to the industry also. So those who are interested in molecular development or any other kind of process development, chemical process development, chemistry study, can always contact us. In Department of Chemistry, you can see the lab. This is just like a corporate kind of the laboratories. Next, please. This is only university in Gujarat which is having NMR, that is nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy at IU. Basically, it is an analytical chemistry technique used in quality control research for determining the content and purity of a sample, and at the same time, this is useful in determining the molecular conformation in the solution, as well as studying the physical properties at the molecule level. So it is almost worth 3 to 4 crore kind of the equipment. Next, please. Analytical instrumentation lab, you can see a corporate research lab kind of facility in terms of the analytical instrumentation facility available at the IU, HPLC, HPLC from Waters, Perkin-Elmer, TLC, ultraviolet chambers are there, FTIR spectroscopy is available. Next, please. Gas chromatography, number of units, HPLC, gas chromatography, GCMS is also available. Or this hot air oven, laminar airflow cabinets, and muffle furnace, these all are very common to everywhere. You can see the picture of well-developed laboratories, state-of-the-art laboratories, general instrumentation lab, analytical instrumentation lab, autoclave lab, microbiology lab, cell biology lab. Next, please. Still, you can see the number is increasing. All kind of facilities available at Indrashil University Research Laboratory. And I invite all of you to make maximum use out of it. We are available for all of you. Next, please. Yes, in Department and School of Engineering, we are having 3 programs, as I said: Computer and Science and Engineering, Mechanical Engineering, Chemical and Biochemical Engineering. And the beauty of our program, this is the only university where you can find out the minor specialization in Gujarat, where under Computer Science and Engineering, you can do minor in Big Data and Data Science, Cyber Security, Embedded System and IoT, Machine Learning, Artificial Intelligence. In Mechanical Engineering, there are automation and robotics, mechatronics, advanced manufacturing, design engineering, automobile, thermal engineering. In chemical and biochemical, you can see bioprocess engineering, environmental science and sustainability, process modeling, optimization, micro and nanofluidics, and sector specific. So what student can earn, they can go with the core general degree at the same time minor specialization, so they can increase their chances of employment and the further study both the ways, and PhD, but obvious, followed by all these programs. Next, please. So these are the subjects where I'm just highlighting the major courses which we are offering under the each BTech program. In computer, we are having digital signal processing, multimedia technology, artificial intelligence, network system, data sciences, robotics, IoT, machine learning. These all are advanced and industry-made curriculum. In chemical and biochemical engineering, we can see biochemical engineering, bioprocess, nanoscience, nanotechnology, pharmaceutical technology, petroleum refining and petrochemicals, polymer technology, environmental science and sustainability, chemical process optimization, process modeling, process simulation techniques. Next, please. Similarly, in mechanical, you can find thermal engineering, machine design, operational research, manufacturing technology, fluid dynamics, industrial engineering, automation and robotics, advanced manufacturing, automobile, mechatronics. Next, please. So these are just glimpses of laboratory. In computer laboratory, you can see monitor and CPU, but this CPU is containing a complete world information, all kind of software in such small box. Next, please. In chemical and mechanical laboratory, as I said, the research laboratory, which is available to chemical engineering as well as chemistry and biotechnology, bioscience students also, and mechanical engineering laboratories are well established laboratories at Indrashil University. Next, please. Industrial internship and visits to connect with the industry to give students exposure of the industry behavior, industry practices, industry trends. It is a continuous activity. Just you can see from the eyes of camera. Next, please. Extracurricular activities, as I said, we are giving 360-degree development of platform to the students, and you can see everywhere sports, extracurricular, extramural, co-curricular, all kind of activities are there. Next, please. So this is what the MOUs with various industries and research organizations. Even you can see the educational institutions also. So next, please. We are very lucky, as I said, we are having AIC, IAC Foundation at the same time SSIP, that is Indrashil Innovative Foundation at the university. And students will be lucky to study at Indrashil University because they will get knowledge in their area. Plus, if they are having entrepreneur skill in them, then they can approach AIC, IAC Foundation for the incubation program or the Indrashil Innovative Foundation for the startup to conceive their ideas. Next, please. So AIC, IAC Foundation is an innovation ecosystem where people and ideas come together to solve today's chemistry and environmental challenges. We offer flexible, ideally located facilities, complete with on-site professional and administrative services, access to the latest technology and equipment, as we mentioned earlier, contact with industry leaders and organizations from MOU you can see, added with economic benefits not available elsewhere. And plus with Indrashil University at the core with shared lab infra, trained faculties, research staff, IPR expert, and also our AIC center is recognized that innovation propels innovation, invention propels innovation, density spurs collaboration, and shared purpose drives a thriving community at the campus. Next, please. So you can have all these facilities at our center with the provision of rupees 50 lakh kickstart support, provision of rupees 2 crore seed fund support, plus 360-degree support for taking startup to a sustainable business. Next, please. So as on that, you can say we have started operation in April 2019, but the success story of this program is idea outreach and sensitized over 5,000 via all activities. Applications received more than 300, applications screened more than 50, shortlisted for incubation support 30, and number of pre-incubates 12. So this is possible. Number of startups are 5, and current campaign going on IAC Idea 10 2020. So you can see the success story, and if you are really interested in Indrashil University, you can reach us by surfing www.indrashiluniversity.edu.in, or you can go through the www.aicac in foundation.org. You can put your query at admission@indrashiluniversity.edu.in, or you can contact us on the phone number mentioned over here. We are present on all social media. Thank you very much. Can we have a introduction to our webinar, please, Kandar? Next PPT, please.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt here. We are going to have now a panel discussion beginning with Dr. J.S. Yadav, who will be initiating the panel discussion. And also to the viewers, I welcome all the viewers who have joined, and especially I want to acknowledge people from Rajasthan Ayurvedic College, also university also. There is a research person from Karnataka University, and Mr. Vinod Kumar from Department of Geography, and from NIT Warangal also there is a person who is attending this, and Dr. Rahul Swarankar from Udaipur. I request all the viewers and participants to raise their questions in the Q&A box, and please identify yourself and name of the speaker also, so that we can answer you adequately. Thank you for paying the attention. And now we begin with Dr. J.S. Yadav, who will be initiating the panel discussion.
I think there is some. First, our Amish has to speak. He has not completed the. You go, Amish.
Sir, I am continuing. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am continuing. Kandar, we have next presentation, please. So once again, I welcome all of you, and this complete webinar is organized by Indrashil University, supported by Chiral Pharmaceuticals Limited, SSIP Indrashil Innovative Foundation, AIC ISC Foundation, and Atal Incubation Mission. So we have this statement from our beloved Honorable Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi, that India's pharma industry is an asset not just for India, but for the entire world. It has played a leading role in reducing the cost of medicine, especially for developing countries, and Chiral is doing exactly what he is saying with the motto of care continues. Next slide, please. So this is what our webinar, and it is a second number of webinar in a series of science and technology for mankind. Next, please. So just to highlight that Indian pharma industry is the world's largest by volume, 13th largest in terms of value, generating over $11 billion of trade surplus every year. It is among the top 5 sectors contributing to the reduction of India's trade deficit. Remember, that is very important. And India is the source of more than 60,000 generic brands across 60 therapeutic categories, and manufactures more than 500 different active pharmaceutical ingredients, that is APIs. And India is a home for more than 3,000 pharma companies with a strong network over 10,500 manufacturing facilities. And the production cost is 1/3 of that in USA and half of that in Europe. And that is why now each and every complete world is attracted towards the India. So Indian pharma sector supplies over 50% of the global demand of various vaccines, about 40% of generic demand in the USA, 25% of all medicine in UK, and over 80% of the antiretroviral drugs used to combat AIDS. Next, please. So bulk drugs and drug intermediate industry is the backbone of pharma industry, and it is ranked the 3rd largest in the world. About 57% of APIs to pre-qualified list of the World Health Organization (WHO) is contributed by India. Somehow, past 2 decades, India's reliance has grown for import of low-cost intermediates and APIs, mainly from China. So import from China has seen steady rise over the years, from 62% in financial year 2012 to 68% in 2019, worth around rupees 169 billion of intermediates and APIs. And that shows because we are having almost a $40,000 million gap between import export with the China. High import from only one nation is a point of concern to all stakeholders, including government, considering health security, India industry, that is raw material shortage, price hike, lower margins, and from consumer point of view, drug shortage and spurious drugs. Next, please. So more than any other industry, pharmaceutical sector is highly dependent on its research and development segment. Without that, that can't work. Cadila is leading in that one also. The top pharmaceutical companies invest up to 20% of their revenue in R&D. So in the COVID-19 pandemic, Indian pharmaceutical companies have attracted attention of whole world by demonstrating their R&D and mass production capacity. So now under the new vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat of our Honorable Prime Minister, the revolution is taking place and the policymakers are now planning to reduce the import and promoting Atmanirbhar manufacturing of imported blood drugs. So China could achieve that just because of the R&D, strong R&D and the linkage between industry and academia. So now government is also urges to the R&D labs in India to support manufacturing of bulk drugs and intermediate. Next, please. So government has announced 30,000 crores of budget boost to boost the manufacturing of all these things. And as a result of this, many scientists opting to work for Indian companies who would have otherwise moved to research labs for MNCs in international locations. And increasing international focus on conducting research in India, now MNCs from the outside countries are also coming to the India for research purposes. They are all operating from India. They are opening their branches in India for the research. They are hiring scientists in India also. Next, please. So in order to address all these challenge, imported intermediate bulk drugs, India must foster our inherent chemistry knowledge through industry academia partnership in long run. And this webinar is a part of such effort only. So government has taken steps considering the shortage of API. There are 53 APIs identified by the government. Next, please. So considering this strategy towards the Atmanirbhar Bharat, there are 4 schemes developed by the or offered by the government in for bulk drug and medical devices. That is divided into bulk drug and medical devices. In bulk drug, the first part is production linked incentive scheme, that is PLI scheme, where 53 critical KSM drugs, intermediates and APIs are concentrated. 3 bulk drug park will be developed with to assist in the common infrastructure facilities in the part that government will do for the infrastructure facilities, rest industry or R&D can do. Medical devices where production link PLI scheme, medical devices in 4 target segments will be done, plus 4 medical device park will be developed, assisting for common infrastructure facilities in the parks. Next, please. So summary of PLI scheme for APIs, if I say, fermentation is having a fermentation product like enzymatic reaction. It is having a big gap since long between India and China. China is leading right now, but India is now post-COVID. India is also leading in research in the area of enzymatic process and fermentation area. So that is what maximum incentive and other, you can see the figures. I will not go in the detail, but the complete scheme is divided into 4 segments. First segment is the 04 fermentation based KSM. Second segment 10 fermentation based is KSM, DIs, APIs. Third segment will be the 04 chemical synthesis based, and segment 4 focusing on the 23 chemical synthesis based KSMs, DIs and APIs. Next, please. So how India will get benefited out of it? The expected outcome would be the drug security through self-sufficiency in manufacturing 53 critical drugs, ensure the availability of various essential drugs listed under NLEM, that is National List of Essential Medicines, at affordable prices, cumulative reduction in the import by around rupees 46,400 crore in next 8 years, that is the target. Moreover, at the end of 5 years, import substitution per annum will be 85,000 crore rupees against the current import of 19,000 crore rupees of specified drugs. And it would also create 7,000 direct employment and 14,000 indirect jobs. So that means overall picture post-COVID, we have taken it as an opportunity, and now it is our responsibility to link between academia, industry, research lab to come out of all this scenario and to reduce the gap between import-export and to raise the economy of India. And that is why this webinar is just a foundation in that direction, that how can we do it, and our eminent speaker will highlight that how we can do that, and what are the plans or detailed plan of the government of India. Thank you very much. Next, please.
Thank you, sir, for sharing this wonderful presentation and setting the webinar objective also. Now it's time to invite Dr. Yadav for initiating the panel discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Ramesh. You have nicely presented all this. May I have the only one slide I have? May I have that last slide, please? Okay, only one slide, right? You know, uh, let's see. I don't know, somebody should study the Chinese, how they have come up like this. One thing I'll tell you, I don't know whether many of you may be knowing that China actually studied in early 80s or late 70s. They came to India to study. They only wanted to compete with India. India was at that time producing lot of things, lot of, export and all. Even today also export finished product we are doing. So they came and then they study and then they found there was some loophole. I will not go loophole on radio or web, yes, say. Only they found that the kind of, in 60s, early 70s, lot of government gave subsidy, government gave grant to start the industry. And people got, but they never got up that. Most of them were declared bankruptcy or whatever it is region. But in China, what they did was, I think somebody can study, they said, come out with your proposal, and they actually build the plant. And they said, produce like this much quantity, your plant will be free. That kind of things. So there was government support and there was no corruption. That I would say there was no corruption at all. And they could perform. Now, when we are doing it again, only industry, academy, and government all has to come together. The main reason I will say why it should come together, we say we have a large number of pools of scientists, but there is no connection with the industry people. They don't know what industry need. Industry also doesn't know what capability the academy have to take it. Okay, that is one. I visited China a couple of times. If you go to their academic people, they talk only industrial problem. This is a kind of problem we had to solve. If you go to our academy, they only talk about the publication. They don't talk even the patent. You want to take patent, only publication. So they mainly because we are more intelligent people than China. I can tell you, guarantee you, we have better understanding. But unfortunately, disconnect is there between industry and R&D. So that disconnect has to be established. Okay, and the government will not come. Only we have to come together. Government will of course give support, money, all kind of schemes are there. Just now he had told 4 schemes are there. They will provide it. But unless we put all head together and come out with a new process and all those things, or new starting material even, it will not come. And also I will tell you that, this, what you are seeing today was initiated in 2015. It has taken 5 years to come to this level. Maybe if China, that they would have not come to our Ladakh, probably this would have not started. Okay. So I would say that China has helped in indirect way to us to go for Atmanirbhar or self-sufficiency. So that's why the people whom I invited are expert in their own area. They have been practicing scientists. Okay, they are not just practicing science and practicing industrial science. So they know manufacturing. They also know the problem, everything. So that's why I felt their view, because they are also facing day-to-day import problem, this problem. But only one thing I like to say, what government, should do here, the raw material, what we get, because we are shortage of petroleum, so we import all petroleum product, all solvent, intermediate, chemical, we import. And then we want to go to finished product from those imported. Even our benzene, toluene is more expensive than China. Okay, so all this we only based on import we do. So as a result, our scheme, will be definitely, when you make it for finished product, will become more expensive than the other, because we are starting with expensive. So when we are talking, that government should think, like America's benzene is far cheaper than our benzene. America's toluene is cheaper, or solvent petrol, anything you take. Even methanol you take, they are much cheaper. Ethanol is much cheaper than compared to us. So we are already starting our basic. Our sulfuric acid is more expensive than that, because sulfur you are importing to make sulfuric acid. All this if you take is there. So wherever actually these people are invited, there is no doubt of knowledge, as I said, but this kind of problem we are facing, where government can subsidize the import of this chemical. We are not saying competitive, but at least make competitive to America or China, the cost they do buy. With that cost, I'm sure Indian will come far, far cheaper and better than China. We'll listen to first our Ali speaker, then we'll come back. So may I go with, at the end, we'll come again for discussion, but that's what I thought I would say, that since government has initiated, we at least academics, industries should work together, and I'm sure government has different scheme to support that. Now, I like to invite Vishwajit. He is a Chief Mentoring Officer from Chiral Pharmaceutical. He has experience of many, many years and work in many industry. So and also he's our industry. So I requested him, by profession he's a chemical engineer, right? But he knows chemistry very well. So Dr. Vishwajit Mitra, now desk to you for you.
Thank you very much, Professor Jadhav. You have been always so kind. I go to you, and when I meet you, you treat me like a chemistry student. And of course, when I come out, I have to work in this company. I am a business head, so I always talk about, profit and loss and how to take the business forward, how to deploy technology, how to deploy manpower, optimize that, and how to become, the best cost producer in the world. So thank you very much, Professor. Always you have been guiding me. So I thought maybe I'll make this presentation a little different way. Dr. Amish has given right perspective, and I'm going to touch upon one or two slides which will be relevant for all of us. I talk about self-reliant, which is Atmanirbhar. We talk about Make in India. But, interestingly, what Prime Minister has announced just a couple of days back, he said not only Make in India, not only Atmanirbhar, he talked about India's pharma industry is an asset, not only just for India, but for the entire world. What does it mean? Are we talking about our PLI scheme, which is going to address that? Are you talking about something technological platform? Are you talking about something, more initiative and government support? I just wanted to come to that level of discussion, because I have done entire case study for a pharmaceutical industry to address how PLI is going to be helpful. Definitely it is going to be helpful, but what else we need from government to become best cost producer in the world? So this is my presentation, and I start with the first slide, which is similar to what Dr. Amish has talked about. I just wanted to give you a context that where we are in terms of global pharmaceutical industry. It is $1,250 billion. Can you imagine such an opportunity? We are talking about United States. It is 600 billion, which is almost 48% of pharmaceutical entire global. Where are we? I just thought of converging to the second or third point. Pointed is Chinese and Indian market. If you see, it is 190 billion and India is 53 billion. So I think I can tell you, you can start doing your strategy. You can start doing your right perspective, how to take it forward, where India stands. if you are talking about 190 billion Chinese market, is it for only Chinese? It is not for China. It is for not only for India, it is for entire world. And I can tell you, this is what we should have the strategy, that I'm not going to compete with China. I'm not going to take Chinese name, but we are talking about how India can be more self-reliant, how India can penetrate into world trade, and what kind of a capability we need to have. That is my theme, what we are talking about. I'm taking a larger perspective to tell you that this is where we need to do. Now, interestingly, when we talk about India is the largest generic drug provider, as Dr. Ramesh also talked about, we are fulfilling 20% of the global demand. My point is, why 20%? Come to the next slide. You see today, API unit, how many API unit in the world? 28% API unit is US FDA approved in US. So can you imagine that US company, they are not giving US company, they are not being given approval from US government or regulatory body. It could have been 50%. Why not 50%? They don't want 50% of the US, manufacturer to be US FDA approved. They have approved 18% of the total requirement. Today what you see US FDA approval, 18% from India, 13% is China, and Europe is 26%. I was sitting in Europe for 4 years before coming here, and I found that European company, they are doing exactly, but if you are talking about capability, India has got much more capability. So I operated a European company, but I can tell you, sitting in India, we are having much authenticated, much comprehensive, much technological advancement, whatever you are talking about, chemistry and science, what you have. But having said, India is 18%, China 13%. What happened to export? Chinese is doing more export in US than India. So I want to bring this particular point out in front of everybody, that what is relevance for us. Now coming to the next slide, you talk about Indian industry. I am talking about Indian pharmaceutical market share for the formulation and bulk drug is 40 billion and 13 billion. Do you think that this 13 billion servicing for entire 40 billion market? No, it is not. Are we synergized? Do you have the proper backward integration? The answer is no. Absolutely, ecosystem, if you talk about, it is not balanced. So I want you to understand what is important for us. Today, PLI scheme, what we are talking about, making more and more bulk drug for domestic requirement. They are emphasizing that this scheme is applicable for domestic. Okay, but I had a couple of interaction also with government, and then we are approaching to them and saying that, why don't you extend for export also? So that we can make large scale facility, not only for domestic, but also for export, and make a giant facility. We get a scale of operation, we get much more cost effective producer in the world. So this dialogue is going on. Government said that, yes, we'll consider that, but start with your domestic activity, domestic formulation activity, what you want to support. Now look at India's import, 31% API requirement. Even for our company also, we are importing, and 31% of API requirement today it is getting either from China or Hong Kong, Singapore, Italy, US. Out of that, this 31% biggest chunk we are importing still today, 70% for my company also. This is not only the global statistics, but also for company like us or peer company is 70%. So why we are doing? Go to the next slide. Very important. Now look at cost breakup, the right hand side of your presentation. You talk about India, out of 100, if I take about major parameter like raw material, power, manpower, maintenance, consumable, and others. If you're talking about India 100, China, all costs they have optimized, they have come to 80%. Just think about China in 70s, they are something like, they are more than 35%. Today it has come to 20%. Why? Because the regulations are changing, environmental production acts are changing. Now they realized without environmental production act, they cannot be, recognized for export. They have started doing all environmental application, investment, everything in last 10 years. You remember, China has started investment for environment 10 years back, and then we started getting the cost benefit is comparatively low. So that is where we are pitching in today. And we said that this 20%, if we can make it to 10%, or maybe, the same level, 80%, if we can bring down our cost to 80% by 20% reduction, then we can be as competitive than China. So nobody is going to go to China for import. So my point is that what China is getting, what Chinese people, Chinese company they are getting, what are the factors providing advantage of Chinese bulk drug manufacturer? Go to left-hand side of your slide. Availability and cost of raw material. I'm talking about cost of raw material. It is not only just N-5, N-10, N-20. I'm talking about basic raw material. The raw material which is coming directly from petrochemicals. So whether we can get that advantage in India, or still we have to go back to China and say that give us basic raw material. So this is something which government of India has to take a policy. How many petrochemical company they are going to bring it in India, how to get that petrochemical. Today you think about, you have largest pyridine manufacturing setup in India, in North India. Company is having largest capacity, but their capacity utilization is 35%. Still people are going and buying pyridine from China because they get only advantage of 50 rupees per kg cost. So how to make sure that we become number one in terms of our raw material, core basic raw material, self-reliant, not only for the intermediate. If you go for intermediate, you start from intermediate, you are missing many points, because basic raw material, it has to come from India. It has to come from China. So you cannot ignore that. Please, I want all audience to understand that where we are coming from. So we need government advantage, certain technological, platform. Most of the country like China, they are tying up with the industry, with the academics and university. They are getting advantage of getting technology, getting the process. But Indian industry, I don't think we have access. And this is the right opportunity for capitalizing that. Today, I can tell you, I have 15 PhD scientists working in Indrashil University. And you imagine 15 PhD student will have 15 PhD report, which is going to be most useful for launching my 15 product, which is coming out of patent after 2030. So can we have similar sort of model for most of the industry? Can we get access to university? Can IU or other university can also tie up with our industry? I think we need to do more. So this is my submission. Second and third point, which is most important, access and cost of utility, labor cost and productivity. Today, I can tell you the cost of labor for China and India is almost same. Because earlier cost of labor was, they had an advantage of 15%, but it has come down to somewhere 4 to 5%. So their productivity is very high. So if you are talking about a huge scale, large scale operation, the cost of labor is down because they can do much bigger scale operation where we can't do. And for that, we need to have more automation, which we are just, couple of hours back, we have been talking that why can't you go for Industry 4 to have realization of more automation, more productivity, and more accuracy. Logistic infrastructure cost, access to cost of capital, access and cost of capital, which is most important. Are we talking about that in our PLI scheme? We are talking about some advantage of, getting a fixed amount in the PLI scheme, but creating a bulk drug park is going to be much better than investment of something like 50-60 crore for one or two product. So I would urge companies to take and pursue with government to ask for more such kind of activities, so that it is just plug in, plug out. You just go and start your activity from tomorrow. So you have utility, you have infrastructure like analytical infrastructure, you have port very close to that, so that you can really optimize that kind of a cost, what we are talking about. But if you want to go for a greenfield project, obviously the cost and cost benefit analysis, if you do, then cost of capital is going to be quite high. So finally, you don't realize that sort of, advantage over here. So I again urge all of you to understand that scale up operation is most important. If you do only for domestic production, your captive production, you cannot achieve the scale of operation. You have to have export, you have to have domestic operation for the same thing. And we have to urge government to get and to allow us to do export as well, not only for our domestic production. Government facilitation, land reform, which is important, but we are yet to see. Next slide. What I'm talking about, everybody knows that what are the 4 schemes available. I don't want to touch upon, but I have done for my company, but I find it is quite attractive, but over a period of time, you can realize that not immediately, because threshold quantity, what government is asking for making your industry viable is not that what you can do immediately for domestic industry. You need to export together. If you do export and domestic together, you can realize this benefit from the very first year onwards. Otherwise, the benefit is going to be from 3rd and 4th year onwards. So that is one important aspect what I thought maybe all of you should understand. Go to this next slide. Next slide. This is talked about by Dr. Anish. I don't want to speak on that. Next. That is also same thing. We are talking about segment 3. We are talking about segment 4, chemical synthesis. But it is most important. I think I heard you what you talked about. The fermentation and enzymatic reaction can really bring the competence in the country. We need to have technology platform. If you are talking about, bulk drug industry working in batch operation, I think we should talk about plug flow reactor. We should talk about continuous reaction. We should talk about best-in-class technology where we can get the minimum cost of operation. So we have to optimize by investing hugely in our technology and chemistry. But finally, I have certain question. I thought maybe I leave it to this particular platform to discuss on this 4 area. Next one. Yeah. The first and foremost important question to all of you is what opportunity and challenges do we bring for Indian pharma industry? Are you talking about only domestic production? Are you talking about only captive and replacing only 23 bulk drug? Why not 200 drugs, what we are having today? So can we get exemption for 200 or we are restricted to 23? Number 1. Number 2 is that is India prepared to mitigate the challenges and seize the opportunity? What is our prime objective is Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. It is not only for us, it is for rest of the world. That is my second question. Third one, what are the key imperatives for Indian pharma industry to garner a large share of drug market in the developed world, US, Europe, and Japan? And believe me, I have been also monitoring closely with Japanese company, and most of the Japanese company, they are asking from India that you must supply API, you must supply key intermediate from today onwards. So we have a huge demand from Japan, which we need to capitalize. And the fourth one, which I thought of most important point, what initiative should the government and regulatory bodies take for the growth and development of pharma industry? And what are some of the key areas where pharma companies should increase technology deployment to become cost effective? This is exactly what Dr. Ramesh was talking about. You are talking about enzymatic reaction. You are talking about, biotechnology, bring biotechnology based API more and more. And we need more university support like IU and other university IICT to address all that issue. So that is my submission. And I thought maybe I'd leave it to the expert panelists over here to have discussion on a couple of areas, including this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Viswajit. In fact, it was very informative that how Indian government has to, overhaul the manufacturing process and policies related to it so as to compete and go beyond China's growth. The next in line, we have the spotlight.
Next speaker is Dr. Raja Manna. Very Raja Manna, are you listening me?
Yeah, I'm able to listen.
So Raja Manna has been in Sun Pharma from the beginning. When he started, Sun Pharma was like a baby at that time. Today it has become #1 in India. And we had become the richest person through this. So I felt, and he has been in the same company almost close to 30 years for last 3 decades. So he has a wide experience. I felt that he will definitely add to this panel. Dr. Raj Manar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Yadav, and I'm delighted to be part of this webinar on indigenization of intermediate and bulk drugs in India, ramping process R&D, and also privileged to be a speaker among the many of the eminent speakers today. Please go to the next slide, please. Any of the activities we see, the science for the mankind, it should lead to the economic growth and sustainability. Without these two things, we cannot do any business. Why, at one point in time, India was very good in terms of both in bulk drugs as well as backward integration of producing drugs. But when we saw that some of the cheaper intermediates and final products, APIs, are available from China and the rest of the other world, then we sort of getting these intermediates and APIs from China. And currently the situation is that, we are heavily dependent, so we are not able to adjust to the current situation, though it's possible to correct. But that's the thing, where we need to be self-sufficient. And the part of the self-sufficient, that whether we are viable in terms of what we are developing and is it sustainable in terms of environmental cost, quality, because every day the change of scenario in terms of quality and in terms of requirement, in terms of the environmental safety and benignness changes, since the activities proliferate to the diverse level. So when we say that economic growth, we need to have technology, innovation, energy conservation, diverse technological capabilities. We cannot say that with one of the chemical or biological or only enzymatic or catalytic would help, but all of these should work simultaneously depending on the process one would looking. Sustainability is that how fast we are able to move the process to get the end product. That's a very important aspect, the productivity and competitiveness. If we are not competitive and quality conscious and productivity, then we will not be able to sustain. And there should be a measurement in terms of the ecological safety. And we say that we are the pharma of the world, then we should be having the backward integration of doing everything at the best of the possible manner. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, if you look at 2019, about 249 billion worth of intermediates and APIs we have imported, of which about 169 billions from China. It's a huge dependency from one single nation. And the current COVID crisis, an important lesson that we need to take into consideration, and it should not be a problem, but we should actively participate in resolving this issue, like the Y2K opportunity which we had in 2000, early 2000. And one of the best thing is that we have the best technical skills in an API manufacturing, either in terms of the production units, in terms of the chemical engineering, in terms of the chemistry, in terms of the knowledge. We have the best minds in the country. And what we need to do is that we need to be optimize productivity and look for cost, scale, and robustness. And most of the times we forget, when we are looking at the process at the R&D level, the speed with which we want to translate the R&D process into manufacturing leads to some shortcuts. but that should not be the way one should be, though it may be required in terms of the business. It could be implemented in terms of the first step, but go back to in terms of continuous improvement, in terms of productivity, in terms of cost, in terms of scalability, and then how robust my process in terms of the sigma principles, reproducibility, and it's the chemical attributes or physicochemical attributes variability. And we also need to have the indigenous raw material supply from nearby. There should be low minimal transportation and inventory costs. We cannot have a huge inventory for producing 100 kgs of material, thinking that if we don't have an inventory, then we will not be able to sustain the productivity. So this is another thing we need to have, and a lean inventory system. And we also need to encourage an ecosystem to synergize the drug manufacturing and self-reliant. Of course, everyone cannot do everything. It's an important lesson now that we need to enhance our capabilities and create the smaller systems in terms of their capability of producing the raw materials and intermediates and supply and reliability of those cost with quality, so that the whole pharma industry can move in terms of tackling whatever may be the situation it comes. Go to the next slide, please. 2 decades back, India was in a progressive mode. We were well positioned in backward integration of producing APIs as well as intermediates. As we see that last year imports dumping from China resulted in over-dependence. But that over-dependence resulted in a crisis and a wake-up call. When we wanted to supply hydroxychloroquine, then we wanted every intermediate from China, and if China doesn't supply, then we cannot supply the final product. And that cannot be a situation, but in case of Zydus, they were able to make all backward integration, could supply hydroxychloroquine to the entire world, huge supplies, and Alembic azithromycin production ramp up to meet the requirement, and Biocon statins and immunosuppressant production. So that means we have a talent, but we have forgotten, based on what was available at a cheaper cost, but that could have been made in India itself at a much better and cheaper cost with an improved technologies and with robustness. But that the failure resulted in terms of this wake-up call, and in a way, it is a lesson that we would be able to, we have realized, and we would be able to move forward. Go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, sorry. The economic viability, when we say that the production makes a big sense, we cannot be producing on a small scale. We need to have a large production to manage the productivity as well as the, the commercial cost, because the overheads consumes more than, depending on the number of steps and the complexity of elements, more than 20 to 30% of overheads. So that needs to be controlled, and there should be common utilities and government incentives and electricity. These are the elements which contributes the cost, where China is, what we have seen with Dr. Biswajit, were 20% cheaper. But in terms of our ability to have a process which can be produced on a large scale and having common utilities and various other aspects, we should be able to. And government is really taking a lot of initiatives with the current situation, and will be a biggest boost of having 10,000 crores given to augment the API production in the country. But what one should look into the current focus, a ramp up production scale, whether our process is capable of producing 10 times of what we are doing, and what would be the saving of that, such a kind of production and requirements. And of course, it cannot be done in overnight, but you need to resize the vessels and everything. But one needs to keep those things in mind, so that we would be able to save several of these things. And a process should be selected to have a maximal atom economy. But most of the times, in a hurry, probably we would have overlooked some of these things. But we cannot generate a waste. If you make 1 kg of a API, there cannot be 100 kgs of a stuff which we are not able to use and needs to be disposed. And that is a very unhealthy process which we need to do a shortcut. In this also, I mean, when China was enforcing their environmental laws, we could have seen even 4 or 5 years back, China was raising their costs of intermediates and APIs. That should have been a kind of a signal for all of us that we need to revamp our API production units and the small scale units so as to produce and have the in-house capabilities. And one of the important thing is that there is very minimal interactions with academia labs, because what we see, what is there in the patent, and then we simply follow, most of us. And of course, I mean, some of the industry, they do their own process as well as the patentable and novel things, but probably sometimes it could be kind of polymorphs in terms of the patent infringements. But truly looking at, are we looking in terms of the environment? Are we looking in terms of the cost? Are we looking in terms of this, purity and quality and reproducibility? These are the things, because why FDA comes and again and telling that India is not, I mean, having a capability of producing a quality product batch after batch. This is one of the biggest problem, that we are not looking at my productivity in terms of consistency, my productivity in terms of variability, my productivity in terms of any batch failure, clarity and investigations. So these are some of the things we need to be really emphasizing, that the viability or manufacturing drugs viability would depend on the chemistry skills and understanding and knowledge and development of analytical methods, so that we would be able to understand where we are, how to handle some of the situation, and what needs to be improved. Of course, we have a large expertise of chemistry and chemical engineering skill set in an unmatched asset in the country when we compare globally, and that too at a reasonable cost. I mean, our manpower cost in India is cheaper than China, but we are unable to compete with the cost of the China, which is dumping in terms of either drug intermediates or final APIs, because we are not looking in terms of how to maximize our abilities in terms of large scale, in terms of quality, in terms of reproducibility and robustness. This is one of the important, because a few batch failures in 100 batches can result in 30% loss of business. I mean, few batches, maybe 2-3 batches in 100 batches can result in a loss of 30% of business loss. So that's not a small thing. I mean, that's something we need to look into. How do we understand our process? Go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So when we say that technology attributes, is my process is efficient, is my process is hazard low, is there any detection in terms of analytical sensitivity, what kind of hazard? Because all of us will be doing the chemical reactions which some way or other is hazardous in nature, and some chemical reactions are really hazardous. We need to monitor and we need to check its sensitivity in each step, whether it can be drying, it can be filtration, it can be evaporation, whatever may be the step. It may not be the chemical reaction, it can be any of the process. And the important most aspect in the pharmaceutical is the quality. Without quality, you cannot sell. In any of the other business, you can say that a discounted price. In pharma, there is no discounted price. There is one price and one quality. And if you don't meet quality, you don't have a product. And the reproducibility and scalability and analytical precision could be able to demonstrate whether I would be able to make a batch after batch of the same quality and with robustness. And we also need to see that high productivity and energy conservation. So if you don't have high productivity, if I start a batch and if I get after 7 days or a week or 2 weeks, then there is nothing really we are doing something to justify that my process is capable of producing on a large scale with high productivity. So this needs to be very important. And the last thing is that compliance with environment and regulations. Without that, we cannot be able to achieve. In fact, we were doing one of the process for gabapentin in 1998. If you look at the process for making 10 kgs of gabapentin, we were evaporating about 500 liters of water, and evaporation of water to get a product, water soluble product, is a huge cost and time, and we get an impurity of lactam, which is once again a problem and in terms of a quality. What we did is that, can we get a product simply from water? And we did a process where we simply neutralize to a certain pH and you cleanly get a product crystallized from water, where you are able to resolve that 500 liters or 1000 liters of product for 10 kgs. Now you can make tons and tons of a product in a day without removal of water. It's a large amount of energy conservation and high productivity and with high purity, because you don't need to heat the product. So there is no lactam formation and other byproducts. So your efficiency of a process or a product cost or safety is a function of all these things, and compliance to the environment. Because why we stop producing? Because there is a lot of a regulation which is in fact a requirement. You cannot go and pollute and say that I can only live on earth and no other living being has a role in living on earth. That's a wrong concept, because we all live because other lives needs to be there. So if you don't look into that, then it's going to be a problem. So the effective way is to look into the process and see the metrics in all of this in terms of efficiency, hazard, quality, reproducibility, scale, productivity, energy conservation, and compliance to environment. Go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So we have seen that consistency of product quality is an important with yield, and the competitiveness of the manufacturing process, what we have, whether it can sustain for next 5 to 10 years. We cannot say that I'm producing today, but I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow or next 6 months down the line. What is going on with the product or the product quality, with the product characteristics, what is happening with my product is something is going to change tomorrow, because you see that many of the products comes with a polymorph, with a solvent reduction in terms of its limits, or the impurities reduction. And currently we see that the metallic impurities as well as the genotoxic impurities, all those things, and suddenly the business stops. And we see that the NMDA impurities stopping many of the sartans and metformin and everything. You cannot be having such a kind of situation, because the ICH guidelines came well before in 2013 for genotoxic impurities, but we were sleeping in terms of what we are producing, what we need to do, and what is my product. So this is one thing that we need to be actively looking in terms of the physicochemical attributes, impurity levels, and product stability. Everything is a requirement, and the scale of operations and energy and inventory costs. Unless your supply system is close by and they're efficient, and you cannot have huge quantities which can be hazardous, and it as well as in terms of the safety as well as the inefficiency process builds up. So if no, one should look into the cost elements, possibility of new and novel technology, and seriously look into industry academia, because the industry academia collaboration can bring a lot of change in terms of the current technology and what one can really can do improving the process. And everything we do should be best in class with consistency, superior quality, knowledge, and with very low competition. Then only we will be able to sustain our business. And government initiatives should position India with high certainty towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. So if you want to be self-reliant, of course, we can do in terms of knowledge, in terms of innovation, in terms of whatever we do in terms of the scale. But in terms of the government, in terms of providing the infrastructure, in terms of providing the common utilities, all those things is very important. That's where the China scores that if you want to do a business, the scoring of China is double to that of India. They can fast implement the process in terms of initiating the business as well as the starting of the business. But in India, initiating business takes a lot of time in terms of finding all these problems. Go to the next slide. Yeah. So we have an opportunity with this COVID-19 as a situation, and we need to have an expertise in terms of flow chemistry, enzymatic transformations, and many of the things which we really shy away when things comes to that new technologies to implement, because we think that my plant is running, why I should change. That's not the case. You need to change. The change needs to be brought in so that we can move ahead in terms of competition, so that it should not become a bottleneck. And 2021 should become a learning lesson for the API business, that we truly become best of pharmacy of the world, producing affordable and quality medicines. and sustainability with least pollution and economically viable technologies. And how do we do these things? I mean, I just have a couple of slides. Go to the next slide,
Sorry
please.
to interrupt you, sir. We have a time limit. I'm very sorry that.
Yeah, I have two more slides. I'll
Sure,
complete
sir.
now.
Please, sir.
So, yeah, if you look at, I mean, say, one way of layman language, I'm just putting the production cost and the molecules and converting those production costs and the molecules in terms of the carbon equivalents. And if you look at the number of carbon equivalents and the cost per carbon, there are some, you have hydroxychloroquine, pregabalin, atorvastatin, and favipiravir. And you see that pregabalin, the carbon cost is 452 rupees compared to metformin of 37 rupees. Why one should pay and have a process of 452 rupees of pregabalin per carbon cost? I mean, this is a kind of a way to understand by even a non-chemist. And in case of favipiravir, if you say that 1,20,000, the carbon cost comes to more than 9,000. So is it a viable process? So if one looks into, then if you go to the next slide, yeah. So, I mean, this comes an illustration that you can introduce complexity in terms of chirality, number of reactions, special elements, and sp3 carbon, all those things. But simply, if you see the carbon to cost ratio, there is a significant difference. By just looking at those differences, one can say that rating, if you say that metformin has a high cost efficiency, and if you see that hydroxychloroquine doesn't have a cost efficiency, we need to improve that cost. We cannot sustain hydroxychloroquine producing with 15,000 rupees and pregabalin producing with 6,000 rupees unless you have an enzymatic process. It's not a process we can continue. We can produce today for the today's requirement, but tomorrow's sustainability. You need to look into in terms of the environmental and in terms of the competitiveness. And atorvastatin, of course, we are looking at the process last 20 years. There is a significant improvement, even though you have several chiral carbons and things. The carbon to cost ratio is about 12 rupees. And of course, favipiravir, it's such a simple molecule. The number of carbons is very low, but 700 rupees, it's impossible to produce such a product with such a. When you say the carbon ratio, that means so many carbons have been lost in terms of the effluents, in terms of the waste, in terms of the unviable yields. So this is a very important aspect as a part of the development. One needs to think, how do we come with an innovative and cost-effective and a productive process one can reach into. Go to the next slide. I think this is my last slide. And it's important that you need to measure the metrics of your process to control the waste as well as the efficiency, productivity, and pollution controls, and improving the lost opportunity. When you say that for 1 kg I generate 20 kgs of waste, that's a lost opportunity. Can I convert that 20 kg of waste into my product? That's very important. And if you want to say the affordable medicines and everyone wants to take, that means if my purity and quality and yield and turnaround is fast, then I'm able to produce a product with the safe quality. That means I'm able to reproduce my product with a similar quality, my yields and other things are optimized. So we would be able to produce and we would be able to sustain under these conditions. And of course, it's very important that we need to also diversify our capabilities and collaborate with academic institutions. And once again, thank you, Professor Yadav, for giving the opportunity to be part of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rajaraman. Actually, in fact, the three mantras which we gathered from your address was the economic growth. For economic growth, we have to take care of the sustainability, ecological safety, as well as India can serve, the entire world also in healthcare system. And you have cited very live example of bulk production of FQ also, how we could have capitalized this opportunity. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Yadav, sir, for introducing the next speaker, that is Mr. Sandeep.
Next is Mr. Sandeep Parikh. He graduated from IIT Bombay, and he started recently his own industry like Synergia, and done very well because I was a doing consulting to him. So I know very enthusiastic, very cost-effective processes they have developed for the household pesticide. maybe not knowing your good night, all out, all kind of things. They make it. Actually, they make, all other companies are the one who formulate. And with this word, I like to invite Mr. Sandeep Parikh. The only thing is that, please don't try to repeat many things. Like,
Yes, yes,
finish it quickly because we are
yes,
running late.
yes. Correct. No, I fully understand. So, thank you very much, Dr. Saab, who we very fondly call you with. So, thank you, the Indrashil University, for giving me this, privilege to talk on this very exciting and important topic, which the country is facing as of today. So, and a special thank you to you, Dr. Yadav.
Thank you very much.
We, along with my team in Synergia Sciences, we respect Dr. Yadav a lot and admire his accomplishment. So hope you continue this important journey, even in helping Kedila University to reach its zenith.
Sure, thank you. Sure.
Yeah, so with this, I'll jump onto the topic. And as you rightly suggested, there will be some commonalities, some similarities in my content vis-a-vis what the erstwhile speakers have talked about. So I will scrape through some of these aspects and then concentrate on areas which has not been touched upon. So in this slide, I would just like to highlight that the dependence on China is on very high volume, basic life-saving drugs. And that makes the whole dependence very sensitive and important to take note of. For example, we are dependent on more than 90% for some of the key intermediates in order to make paracetamol, metformin, semi-synthetic penicillins, semi-synthetic cephalosporins. Now, these are all first-line therapy for treatment. So they are extremely important. Even we are dependent on the finished APIs in some cases like metronidazole and ofloxacin. Next slides. Now, Dr. Biswajit very nicely touched upon some of the cost advantages which still China carries. In subsequent slides, I will give you a slightly deeper version of what has made the cost advantage in comparison to the Indian cost structure. With respect to fermentation, the cost differences are much more because fermentation is more utility and raw material driven, where China has got larger advantages compared to the Indian manufacturers. As far as chemical synthesis, the gap narrows down because they are more manpower dependent in terms of conversion cost and less dependent in terms of the utility cost structure. Now, while studying deeply the penicillin G case and the PAP, which is para-aminophenol, as I told you, the intermediate for paracetamol, and DCDA, the intermediate for metformin, we found out that India was deficient with respect to these 5 very standard generic competitive factors, which we will go in depth in my subsequent slides. So as you see, it is the availability of raw material, better technology, lower factor cost, larger scale and vertical integration, lax laws, and larger government incentives. Some of these advantages have diluted over time, while others continue to be significant. As I move towards the end of this presentation, I will summarize what are the areas where China has still retained advantages and in what areas there is now a level play with respect to the Chinese manufacturers. Just to let you know, I have been involved in this subject of China dependence as early as 2013, because at that point of time, in the Drugs and Pharmaceutical Committee of CII, I was representing the committee, and along with Boston Consulting Group, we had done a deep dive into this aspect and done research and analysis on the cost differentiation. And I would like to share some of the few insights which we had developed at that point of time. As I said, historically, some of these advantages have narrowed, and then in the end, I will be summing up by suggesting what could be the areas where both the government and the industry can take a leap forward in trying to counter the retained advantages. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, so as I said, 80% of the cost of fermentation product is driven by utility and raw materials. This is a typical cost breakup of a penicillin G Indian manufacturing company that existed many years back. They are non-existent today because they have been completely outcompeted by China. Next slide. Next slide, please. China has significant advantages on both the raw material availability as well as on the utility side. If you see the cost comparison of the most competitive Indian player, which is in the center of this slide, and if you compare it to an average Chinese player, there is a difference of 15% between both the conversion cost. Mainly the scale of operation, which contributes to almost around 8.8%, has been the clear differentiator. To some extent, the strain yield was found to be better. The proximity and large abundance of raw material also contributed, as well as the government subsidized cost on steam and electricity, which have been frittered away if you look at it from today's point of view. Next slide, please. If you look at the chemical synthesis, we have two case studies in subsequent slides on para-aminophenol as well as DCDA. So we have found that there were three advantages which China continues, even as of today, to score over the Indian context. One is the factor cost advantage, which was primarily driven by the conversion cost due to larger scale. The raw material advantages and the lax environmental and labor laws, which we will see more in depth in subsequent slide, has given us has given China a massive strength to build the size and capacities. Next slides. You can skip this slide, not very important. So as we have seen for the fermentation facility, even for this slide gives a typical annual cost per reactor kiloliter for a typical chemical synthesis plant in India and China. China, a few years back, had a 10 to 15% cost advantage, mainly out of cheaper fuel and electricity, which at the moment has narrowed down considerably but the scale of production which China has established due to the factors I have highlighted before still gives them an advantage by 10 to 15%, even as of today. Next slide, please. Now, these are the two case studies I talked about. If you look at paracetamol is made from PAP, which in turn requires paranitrochlorobenzene or nitrobenzene. Now, China's PNC capacity was significantly larger than the capacities that existed in India. Just to give you an example of the huge differentiation, the China's leading producer had a capacity of 180,000 tons, whereas the leading producer at that point of time was 16,000 tons. Moreover, these PNCB companies were backward integrated. So there was a huge starting raw material advantage, which completely destroyed the Indian manufacturing base on account of paracetamol. If you look at the second example, metformin, the critical intermediate is DCDA, which requires calcium carbide, which is dependent on lime. Now, over here, China has a huge natural advantage of a large lime deposit and a large calcium carbide production, which they also use for other applications. These, because of the very good infrastructure across the country in China, to gain in some of these logistics and natural advantages, manufacturers went to Inner Mongolia to set up plants, which also had very cheap power because of hydroelectricity and government subsidization and encouragement to set up the manufacturing sites out of there. So just to sum up on this point, the easy availability and direct access to raw material gave China a huge advantage. Next slide, please. The second point which I talked about was the advantages due to the lax pollution norms and the labor laws. If you look at paracetamol historically was made from PNCB via iron reduction, which generated huge waste. So at that point of time, the government overlooked the environmental compliance. Currently, the Chinese manufacturers have migrated to a much more environmentally efficient route of carrying out catalytic reduction using nitrobenzene, which is hazardous. But if Indian companies wish to counter and create capacities, it is very much possible in Indian context now. Similarly, DCDA calcium carbide is a hazardous chemical. During manufacturing of DCDA, there are many byproducts with strong, unpleasant odor. DCDA is hazardous to human health. So the minimal regulations allowed China to take most cost-efficient routes despite environmental and health hazards. Next slide, please. So just to summarize my first part of the presentation, on the left-hand side, there are 6 parameters on which India and China manufacturing has been evaluated. Because of the large natural resources like corn, maize, which greatly helped penicillin G, fluorspar, which greatly helps the fluorination industry, China retains the natural advantage, and they have exploited these natural advantages so well that they have created large capacities for fine chemicals that require these starting raw materials. So in those dimension, India is considerably weak. Similarly, on the fermentation side, China has continuously improved fermentation, backed by a lot of academic, research, and the industry academic collaboration has greatly helped in making China go, years ahead of us as far as fermentation is concerned. Similarly, large scale and vertical integration due to the initial subsidies by the government, the cost of capital, which Dr. Vishwajit mentioned, has still helped China to retain some of these advantages. Whereas in terms of the factor cost like utilities, manpower, the strengthening of laws and reduction of government initiatives, India and China are on a level play. Next slide, please. So there are these 5 initiatives which we recommend we need to improve on to ensure long-term competitiveness of the Indian API industry. Now, these are beyond the PLI scheme, which Dr. Amish, talked about. So by far the most important factor is the continuous process innovation to develop green technology, which Dr. Raja Mamar talked about a lot. Alternate route of synthesis with improved yields. If you look at the APIs that are under development, you find almost 60% of the APIs are chiral in nature. Now, to produce these APIs through a cost-effective way, you need chiral technologies. Now, chiral technologies by way of asymmetric catalysis, biocatalysis, I would say it's still at an infant stage in comparison to, I would say, Europe. So over there, the academia can play a very large, important role in providing the basic, domain knowledge. And if the academia, government, and industry collaboration, interaction, if it can be improved, which I will talk in the next slide, it can go in a big way in enhancing India's leadership in the future upcoming drugs as it goes on out of patent. The pharma clusters, so this suggestion was given right in 2013 through this study which CII and Boston Consulting Group had taken up. And recently government has announced capital subsidies for setting up common infrastructure, which is a fantastic initiative and a step in the right direction. Even a simple, certain points on ease of doing business. We API manufacturer face a lot of hardship while applying and getting environmental, clearances. Can there be a risk-based approach? For example, as of today, small-scale units, large-scale units have to undergo a similar amount of environmental impact assessment, data generation, and the time to obtain clearances. Recently, in March, again, the government has been very proactive and taken up a very correct policy change, which is right now under public consultation. They are trying to give waiver to MSME and delist these requirements of environmental impact assessment, data generation, and public hearing. If it comes through, I think that again is a step in the right direction. As you know, the bulk drug industry is very dynamic. The options to develop and manufacture newer products based on the yearly pipeline of new drugs which get launched, the scope to change product mix is the highest in terms of the bulk drug industry. Now, over here again, industries usually take 4 to 6 months in getting a approval. Even for a process change, for a major process change, legally you are expected to undergo a similar product mix approval, although industry does not come forward and is opaque with respect to these. But these are some of the things which increases the legal risk moving forward. So why not give a provisional approval, especially for these change in product mix, especially to consistently complying units. Companies who are regular defaulters can have a much more microscopic lens to evaluate their submission of data. But units which have had a good historical background in complying should be trusted. And the provisional approval can be backed up with a long-term approval in the normal routine course. Next slide, please. So, this integrated model of R&D collaboration, which is coined as triple helix, it is in existence for many years. In fact, it is doing pretty well among advanced countries like Europe and US. So many successful new drug discoveries are an outcome on account of this very deep interaction and seamless collaboration. We need to make this interaction and collaboration much more effective. So next slide, please. How to make triple helix more effective? Now, one of our recommendation is that the national laboratories who have got wonderful infrastructure and have excellent, scientists who have a very good theoretical background. At the moment, our sense, although I think there are many experts in the panel who could vouch. Currently, the minor part of the budget of the national laboratories is met on account of the income due to industry academia collaboration. Can this be reversed? Can a major portion of the budget come on account of the income which the national laboratories can generate by their interaction and successful outcomes on industry projects? Now, this will push and will drive the change in the approach, the mindset. More interaction will lead to better, trust, which currently there is a big, deficit. Just to cite an example, although it may or may not work in our Indian context, in the US, there is a Council of Chemical Research, which was founded by the head of R&D of Dow in '79. The Council of Research has got a membership from approximately 50 large, industries. There is participation in the board from the government, the national laboratory, from universities. Now, the main mission of this Council of Chemical Research is to minimize the trust deficit, to advocate larger collaboration. It has been there in place since many years, and only recently the results have started showing. And you can see with the kind of success US has in terms of R&D. Of course, the R&D also is greatly funded by the government, because if you compare the amount of R&D expenditure by government is negligible, even in terms of in comparison to China. So, we may not be the experts on how do we make this whole interaction more effective, but there is a extremely strong need, and better late than never. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I have a couple of citations. So as I said, I've drawn few slides from the Boston Consulting Group presentation, which was prepared by BCG along with me when I was active in the Drugs and Pharma CII committee, and also Professor HPS Chawla, who was the ex-dean of NIPER, for his contribution towards this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sandeep Parekh. It was.
I hope I was on time in
Yes,
starting.
sir.
And,
sir, it is very difficult for us to stop you, sir. Sir, unmute yourself, sir. Yadav, sir, unmute yourself. Yadav, sir, you want to say something? Unmute yourself. It was so interesting. In fact, everything is so interesting. We are, tempted to hear more and more. But sometimes, we feel that the other panelists are waiting. Otherwise, we wish, we had dedicated session for each and every panelist.
Okay, good. Presented very well to the point. But one thing, definitely came out. Like a government is supporting, but like what's the other factor, like energy, environment, all kind of things are coming. One thing, everybody, all three speakers, academia interaction is poor in India. That has to be answered. We'll come back to in the conclusion. But thank you, Sandeep. Very nicely you have presented. You were within time, let me tell you. Now I request Dr. Gopalan to speak, maybe reduce the chemistry component to the point and make it in 10 minutes, okay?
Unmute yourself, sir. Dr. Gopalan, please unmute
Gopalan has worked in many industry, and he was PhD from Madras University, and that postdoc he did with E.J. Corey, who was a Nobel laureate at Harvard University. Even though he was in the industry, but he never forgot the academic things, because he knew only academic knowledge can help to develop processes in the industry. And that's what he was most successful and one of the highly paid chemists in the industry. Dr. Gopalan.
Dr. Gopalan, please unmute yourself. Dr. Gopalan, please unmute yourself. Sir, we cannot hear you. Please unmute yourself.
Gopalan, are you there?
Yeah, I am there.
Okay, go ahead now. We can hear you.
Okay. Sir, first of all, I like to thank Dr. J.S. Yadav for giving me an opportunity to this first webinar I am giving on the topic indigenization and R&D, process R&D ramp up. As the term indicates, indigenization means substitution of an imported item to that one manufactured within the country. And it is very important that the local material should be used preferably for the process. So that is in general indigenization. It does not mean it should be a replica of the same process, but there should be some differential we should bring by way of cost effectiveness or environmental friendliness or energy efficiency. Some of these factors have to be factored into the indigenized process. And if you look at this, there are three things in process development: process adaptation, process optimization, and patentable non-infringing processes. These are the only three ways an Indian R&D can function, the process R&D. And the process adaptation, for starters, process adaptation is necessary. They have to get the know-how from somewhere and make profits before they go ahead on their own. And the process optimization is also necessary because they use majority patented processes that doesn't give you a know-how. So they have to do a lot of optimization parameters, yield and other things, the quality. So that is done. But the patentable non-infringing processes, which are very useful and that will revolutionize the whole process industry, but that is less done in India. This is my opinion. And the novel technologies and development determine the trends in the market. So it is very important. And for a ramping up the process R&D, human ingenuity, creativity and innovation are important attributes. So these things should be encouraged. Next slide. These are broad definitions of creativity. Is the ability to produce new and original ideas and things. Innovation makes an idea which is practical and usable. Invention is an idea that manifests, and innovation is ideas applied successfully. So innovation always is very important. There will be few inventors, but more innovators. And innovation may be linked to performance, growth through improvements in efficiency, productivity, quality, competitive positioning, market share, etc. And it is the fundamental source of increasing wealth and wealth in an economy. Because as Dr. Rajamanar clearly said, the economic growth and sustainability, these are two important factors, and this will creativity and innovation will contribute majorly to this aspect. Next slide. So ways of reducing energy, for example, because many of the people, they forget that the energy component normally people don't take into account in those days. They wanted the product, so they will go for the product focus. So these are some of the things you can introduce: reduction in unit processes, reduction in reaction temperature and pressure, reduction in reaction time, multi-component reactions, process integration, use of catalytic, either chemical or a bio reaction processes, use of enzymes in some of the steps of a chemical process, which may make it patentable, and the use of green solvents and the use of flow chemistry, continuous processes. These are some of the ways of reducing energy. First of all, I apologize that my presentation will contain more chemistry oriented, because I'm going to talk more about the innovation, the emphasis on innovation. Next slide. So first, for example, you take a Wittig reaction, everybody knows. It got Nobel Prize for George Wittig. And this is conversion of a carbonyl compound to an olefin. But this process, if you take cyclohexanone to methylene cyclohexane, the atom economy is very poor. It is only 26%. That is the reason the Wittig reaction is very cumbersome, and this process was not followed in the manufacturing. Very few processes, unless you don't have any other method, they will go for this Wittig reaction. So somebody thought, because a lot of triphenyl phosphine oxide will be formed, which is very difficult to purify. And even though it is neutral, it leaches with the product, either by crystallization or whatever way you do, and contaminate the final product. So it is very important that how to get around this triphenyl phosphine oxide back to the triphenyl phosphine. That was a major problem. And actually, development of a catalytic Wittig reaction is the solution to it. This R&D, process R&D should always be working on continuous improvement of processes. They should be reading literature very much, and they should apply judiciously to the benefit of the process. That is how the R&D chemist should work, always looking for something new. And this catalytic Wittig reaction, you may believe it, even though Wittig started it several years back, and the catalytic Wittig process was first published in 2013 only. If you see the Angwande Chemie paper, and a chemistry Euro journal, you will see that this is present in this Chem Euro journal 2013. Lot of work has gone into this. It is not as simple as what it is projected, because you should choose the reducing agent in such a way that it should not reduce the starting carbonyl compound, and it should not reduce the alkyl halide, and it should not reduce the product, olefinic product that is formed in this reaction. So from this, lot of work has been done, and this has also been applied to pharmaceuticals. And this is the way, whatever is projected here, this cyclic phosphane derivatives are very important. And the starting material is the phosphine oxide, not the phosphine. So this is all the more important because in the catalytic cycle, the previous slide, please. Previous slide. Next slide. No, next slide. If you look at it, the phosphine oxide is used, that is converted to phosphine by silane, and then that reacts with the alkyl halide, phosphonium compound, then ylide, and reacts with the olefin, and it gives you, and it goes back to the phosphine oxide, and this is the cycle, catalytic cycle with which this undergoes. So this is a very important contribution by R&D. Next slide. This is to exemplify. This has been published. Next slide. To give you an example, this one, the donepezil, which is a very important drug for Alzheimer's disease, this has been made by this process. Catalyzed by this, they have made this compound. They have made it in say 1 millimole, 76% it has been made, and it has been scaled up also to a larger extent. Next slide. Then the next innovation I would talk about is tetrazole. The reaction of nitrile with sodium azide is the main reaction, and the azide ion addition to a nitrile is extremely slow. That is why you have to use more than 2.5% of the sodium azide, which is very hazardous to use. So it is very important.
It seems we have lost connection with Gopalan sir. We'll resume soon. I request everyone to have patience.
This is azidoazomethane. Is an important thing which goes back to the tetrazole. This equilibrium is very much used in losartan and valsartan. These are the two. This is an alternate strategy where the azide is not used. Next slide. This is the reaction that you take an amide and activate it with the imino compound, treat it with hydrazine, and you get the amidrazole. That on treatment with sodium nitrite gives you the azidoazomethane, which is converted to the tetrazole. This methodology gives you an alternative, but you can always talk about hydrazine as a hazardous material. Next slide. This is the process which has been used. BMS 317180 has been made in a large amount in a 40 kg scale. This methodology has been used. So this goes through the amidrazole formation because they convert it to this material followed by a reaction with hydrazine to give the amidrazole. This is the amidrazole portion. NH2, N double bond C, NH, CH2, CH2OH. And then on NaNO2 treatment, it closes to the tetrazole. So this is one method by which azide-free synthesis is possible. Next slide. Synthesis, then to use 1.05 equivalent of sodium azide, Now, many of the hazardous reactions can be done using a continuous flow micro reactors. Instead of a batch process, you can convert it to a continuous process by flow chemistry. And this is a very useful thing which has come in 2020. Organic process research and development, they have described valsartan synthesis using this methodology, in which they use only 1.05 equivalent of the azide. Next slide. I was talking about the hazardous of the nature of the hydrazine, and this is a very important reaction in which hydrazines are made. The masked hydrazines, signones, all of you might be knowing about signones, the mesoionic compound. You take the aniline, for example, treat it with chloroacetic acid. You get the N-phenyl glycine, treat it with NaNO2 and acetic anhydride. You get the what is called the signones, N-phenyl signones. These signones are masked hydrazine derivatives. As a very stable for years, and you can store it. As and when you need, you just treat it with concentrated HCl, and it will go through the NNH2CHO, which gets hydrolyzed to phenyl-hydrazine. This process is an extremely good process, not exploited in the industry. And the methyl dopa and carbidopa can be converted. Methyl dopa can be converted to carbidopa by simply this process, which we have developed in Orchid Pharma, and this has been patented, but we have not used that methodology for some reason. And this is an old reaction in which this can be done there are several intermediates which can be made using this methodology. This is the important thing is they are masked hydrazines, and as and when you need, you can convert it to phenyl-hydrazine hydrochloride whenever you want. This is, I thought, is an important innovation, which is still in IICT. We have used the 2-chloropyridine reacted with glycine and tried to do this reaction. It goes very well to give a hydrazino derivative. Very, very easily we are getting the hydrazino derivative, NH2 we are getting in that process. That we are thinking of scaling it up in one of the pesticide chemistry, in one of the agrochemicals. We are trying to exploit this reaction. Next slide. A simple catalytic process. This will be my last slide containing the chemical structure. This is a one-step synthesis of racemic Plavix, which has come in a Journal of American Chemical Society, using, say, cupric chloride, 10 mole percent cupric chloride, cupric bromide used along with DMSO and oxygen. It's a catalytic process. What they are using is only 10 mole percent. It alpha brominates the phenylacetic ester and then reacts with the amine to give you the product Plavix, which is a very high selling product. So this was probably the fact that the simplicity, broad generality, single step, and it's a green process for Plavix, clopidogrel, which used to be a very good blockbuster in those days. Next slide. This is the last slide. Innovation-driven culture and strong leadership of scientists who work passionately to improve humanity will be the future of drug discovery and development, and also this applies to process development also. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Gopalan. It was wonderful, though I couldn't make it because given my background, but then I see the dedication you have and the passion you had in saying and describing all these things. Over to Dr. Yadav for inviting the next speaker. Dr. Yadav, please.
Thank you, Dr. Gopalan.
Thank you.
You lived with your chemistry always.
But okay, I hope I finished it within 10 minutes.
You finished in time.
Professor Jadhav,
faster, huh?
Professor Jadhav, it was so interesting. I captured his Dr. Gopalan's atomic efficiency and continuous reaction for valsartan to my team. Just now I said that he will start working from today. It was
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And-
This is a
And also, he is a very nice person. If you need his help, he can help you also.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Now, next our speaker is Dr. Jaspal. He's from the Saurabh Chemicals. Dr. Jaspal, are you there? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yadav, give me a chance for this presentation. So this is API technology development and challenges. Next slide, please. Yeah, background. The global active pharmaceutical integrated market has been segmented on the basis of manufacturing process, API type, drug type, and therapeutic area and regions. API manufacturing process segment include process development, optimization, environmentally friendly reagent, effluent consideration, risk and hazardous safety, yield costing, market volume, and patent exclusivity. Yeah, milestone of the technology development: non-infringing route of synthesis, process development and optimization. See, in the for the process development, it is nice to have the prior art study. Whatever the data is available in the prior arts, then process development and optimization. See, as Dr. Gopalan has explained most of the parameters, just I want to add one thing. See, in most of the cases, what we have seen when we are doing most of the reaction at the reflex temperature, we are using any solvent and do the reaction at reflex temperature. When we increase temperature by giving some pressure in the vessels, in most of the cases, rate of reaction is increased manifold. So this is how we have to optimize our process development. And then there is an analytical method development, vendor development, lab optimization, stability study, kilo lab scale up, FAR report, process mapping, hazardous study, equipment suitability, and wide scale development batches. Next slide, please. Yeah, in the scale up and technology development, it includes kilo lab, pilot lab, trial, transfer up to manufacturing, parallel synthesis, reactor, block, and optimization of condition, FAR report, process mapping, hazardous study, equipment suitability, risk assessment, and stability study. The process support further optimization, fine-tuning of the yield, throughput, cost reduction, troubleshooting, that is reworking of the process, deviation, new vendor approval, and waste of minimization. Next slide, please. Yeah, challenge faced by the Indian pharmaceutical industry. Indian player has steadily migrated up to the value chains to focus on the value added formulation with higher margin. This is because there is a margin is higher as in the formulation. That is why most of the API units, they are shifted to this formulation industries. Chinese pharmaceutical company have the traditional focus on the large volume intermediate and unregulated market are beginning to the forward integrate. The small scale industry not capable to invest in API manufacturing unit due to the high cost of the separate utility system, ETP system, and testing laboratory, etc. Next slide, please. Promote the setting up of the vertical integrated manufacturing facilities for essential drug at a competitive scale. Then utilize capacity of the public sector undertaking PSU like Indian Drug and Pharmaceutical Limited, etc. that invested in the manufacturing of infrastructure required for many of these API and intermediate. Capacity need to be enhanced in order to achieve the economic scale of the production. Government can help to set up the common utility system like ETP system, testing laboratory for pharmaceutical, which is especially for small scale at specific sites dedicated to API productions. Next slide, please. Yeah, suggested way forward. Synergy between the industry and major government institution and university for technology transfer. Then IPR, right for research and innovation, is needed for the day, and the same should be encouraged. Value addition in the pharmaceutical industry comes from the innovation it creates. IPR encourages innovation, scientific discovery, and technology transfer. To encourage that full potential of the pharmaceutical industry to be realized, innovation must be allowed to furnish and the IPR right must be properly recognized, respect and rewarded. This will add speed to the wheel of the progress of the nation in the new paradigm. Next slide, please. Yes, small pharmaceutical. Supporting the innovation in SME as a major drive of new pharmaceutical development. SME are the backbone of the Indian economy. In the pharmaceutical sector, SME are the motor of innovation and play a major role in the process development of the generic medicine. To encourage the pharmaceutical small-scale entrepreneur for API production, common basic facilities like a utility ETP system and approved testing laboratory are required. So if this is, thank you. So this is a common, this is a general problem. I have seen in China, there is a centralized utility system, and that centralized utility system is supporting to 4 and 5 industries. So their manufacturing cost is less as compared to, because we have independent, our ETP system, utility system, and testing laboratory. So that increase our cost of production as compared to China. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jaspal Singh.
Sir, we were waiting for Dr. Chandrasekhar.
Chandrasekhar, most probably he's not joining. He's meeting with CSIR.
Okay, sir.
He's going, still that meeting is not over with all directors and DG.
Sir, we have a question, sir.
Okay, sure.
There is one question which is, I feel that is very significant to answer. That is, the person says that the generic drugs and the standard drugs, why there is a difference in the cost?
I'm cheap on the how to work out the cost and other things. I don't know.
There is some overlap in the voice. Yeah. Yeah. So why there is so much of difference in the cost, though the contents are same? So what is the root cause behind the gap? You know, the cost.
See, in generic drug, that is a formulation with respect to innovator formula. And in branded, there is a like innovation, lot of investment is involved in the R&D. So they have to recover their R&D cost. That is why branded are higher as compared to generic, and they have some plus point also. When you introduce your drug as a branded molecules, then you have to demonstrate what is the plus point in my product as compared to rest of the molecules. That is why how to promote your drug product.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you, sir. There is one question to Dr. Amish. Yeah, sir. Do you have pharmacy branch in your university? It could be answered by Yadav sir also.
No, it is not. Not.
Yeah, and most of the time I have seen feedback which are very positive for us, that it was a wonderful presentation and the insightful, session by all the experts, and it was attended by many people from University of Allahabad. Also, some R&D research scholars also have attended this. Yadav sir, as you say, should we wrap up? And before we wrap up, can we have concluding remarks from Vyas sir also and you as well, sir?
Okay, what we do is, from all the presentation, one thing is came out very clearly, that we need more academic and industrial interaction, because we are not working together. So now we have to work together with academic and this. Second point came out very clearly, this, that there is a energy, environment, all these are going to cost to the company. So there should be a good, when you are making part, a common effluent treatment plant or common reaction. That is very important message came out. The other message is that there should be definitely a government support in the policy issue for the industry so that they become. And one more point which was told by Dr. Mitra, but I'm sure other, that the raw material, what we get from petroleum source, is quite expensive compared to other places.
So there is the answer to the B Pharma question is there from the management, that B Pharma is soon going to start post PCI permission. The request is pending with the PCI, and very soon we are going to get permission, and the moment we get permission, we are going to start B Pharma also. I request Amish Vyas to add.
That won't happen before 2024, okay? So let's. So we are talking the raw material, definitely we found that expensive. You know, the fermentation technology, because we are importing a lot for fermentation. One time, you know, there were good number of industry. DCM was there, Sriram Chemicals were there, Themis was there right in Ahmedabad. Fantastic fermentation technology. And almost all got closed down. And government, you know, realized the importance of that. And they started Hindustan Antibiotics Limited, which was there in Pune, which was there in Rishikesh, so that we do. But over time, you know, I would say that they were mostly in isolation, never improved the trade. As a result, we never became economical. Even the now people, even the bioprocessing is not easy like other chemical. Even the bioprocessing was not done that, you know, developed in India. We started more dependent on import, because import was coming cheaper and all those things. So I think there is no escape. We should start fermentation technology, okay? That is the things. And government, of course, is in favor of that, for that infrastructure. And the raw material, you know, many, what is, if you see the presentation of Dr. Sandeep Pare, or either metformin or paracetamol, the raw material is very important. I'm sure our nitrobenzene is more expensive than that. And, you know, it is some of our organization in India also did very well. Catalytic hydrogenation of nitrobenzene and in situ isomerization of hydroxyl amino, what you call, to para amino phenol. Very beautiful technology, catalytic. But since it was coming from China, they were not ready to scale up that level for that. I think they should revive it. There is a good technology available, catalytic. There are many things which are available, but people are not knowing actually that how to go about it. So another thing is, we put a challenge to the academician that this is the thing we like to get it from you. And of course, incentive will be there. So probably more academic people may get attracted to this kind of challenge. I don't know how to do it, but it should be done. And of course, infrastructure, is the major cost for any industry which is to start. When you are, even though this, all this there, but still with this think of how to government get support for the infrastructure. Maybe low interest rate could be longer period of payment. I don't know how it, earlier it was there DSIR, which used to support such kind of project. I hope DSIR should continue. In between it was discontinued. Their terms became more tougher than the bank. The people were not taking advantage of that. Maybe it should come back. So that's what I would say, that it was only, I said, thank you, all of you came forward and gave a very nice presentation, all of you. And I'm sure a lot of people got benefited. In the web, I can see more than 175 people have attended. And Facebook data will get later, but last time Facebook was more. So it will be around 300 people have attended. And also we got some of the list, very good quality of people working in industry has also attended this. So again, I like to thank you all for nice and in between for your lunch and this. So thanks for attending it. Namrata, to you.
Thank you, Dr. Yadav. Yeah, yes, sir. The question which has been redefined, the earlier was generic and branded medicines. The question now has been reframed by the same person saying that what is the difference in the quality of generic and branded medicine?
Just
if we talk about the quality of generic and both the drugs are approved by the DCI, if we talk about approved by the regulatory agency. So you can say active pharmaceutical ingredient content are same in the generic as well as branded. But the efficacy wise, there may differ in the solubility profile. They may differ in the blood level of the component. Rest of the parameters are almost same.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. And I wish to thank each and everyone. And in fact, Dr. Yadav, who has been assisting me right from opening remarks to the closing remarks, he has been helping me introducing the speakers also. So it's high time now that I overheard some few days back the slogan that is Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. But I would like to add further, Jai Vigyan, Jai Anusandhan, Jai Rasayan should be now the new slogan, because this is how we can, tide over the difficult situation which we are facing right now. And in fact, the entire global economy and social life, health, everything has taken into storm because of COVID-19, which never anyone thought of that we could face this situation. So in fact, what Amish sir has said in the very beginning, that can we convert this crisis into opportunity, and every other speakers also have said that how we can capitalize this situation, how we can convert this into an opportunity. And the trilogy which everyone has said, in fact Mr. Sandeep Parekh also has said that was the triple helix which said that industry, academia and R&D should come together and synergize for the growth and safety and for mankind. So with this, I would like to thank. It is customary and it is obligation also to express our thanks to all the speakers, all the panelists who squeezed time out of their busy schedule and have been with us right from 11 o'clock till now, compromising their lunch time also. Thank you so much once again to the management of Indrashil University, admission team, as well the Mr. Vijay Joy, who heads this Atal Incubation Center, Amish Vyas sir and Yadav sir. Everyone is to be thanked for this wonderful session today. And I'm sure all the viewers, participants who are still 73 number, it's good number, that they are there with us to hear from us. And we look forward for more such dedicated sessions, because you had a lot of content which we wish, to have more hear from you. And that is how I thank you. I again wish you all safety and health. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very
Have a nice
Thank you very
weekend.
much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.